Greetings and welcome to episode 5 of the Ruachile Rising podcast. Today I thought, that I would just, jump on and kind of really do a freestyle episode while I'm just busy with another series that I'm working on around business questions. I've really been thinking about, what I want to cover on this podcast, on my channel. And I think I really do want to be focused and create a balance, between business content and commentary things. But there were two very interesting things, that I feel unfolded. Um, in the media slash cultural landscape in the past few weeks that really had me questioning our ethics around storytelling, across industries in South Africa. Whether you're doing, whether you're in the arts, whether you're in mainstream media, you've got your own podcast, reality shows, like all of these new age, I guess, or these post democratic silos of content, what they really truly mean when it comes to how we tell stories as a people. I've just been feeling like I now more than ever understand why, as Africans, we always relied on oral tradition, so that I think, the way that I see it is that you carry the story somewhat, in your DNA. And sorry to get esoteric, right? I feel like perhaps that's where that might have come from. Like they didn't feel a need to document. But of course, with time, documentation evolved from like drawing, inside walls to like now finding, different surfaces and finding more permanent surfaces to kind of like etch our stories on, right? Now, fast forward all the way to now when we have, this digital footprint that feels permanent, this footprint of your story, I guess, that could even ruin your life. I mean, like, how many people have we seen getting into trouble for things they tweeted like 10 years ago? I mean, an entire Miss South Africa contestant had to step down, and I think it happened twice because of past racist tweets that she wrote in high school. I'm not going to comment on that. I have my commentary on racism in South Africa. If you go and check my writing out on Culture Review, I do have an article called Abelungu Bayadina, and I was just essentially saying that, and I think this really kind of comes into carrying your story in your DNA. As Black people, we grow up, we have an understanding of who we are as lesser than from the time that we are born. Whereas white people get that, superiority instilled in them, and therefore the playing field is not equal. And to look back and say, oh, I didn't know any better is utter bullshit, because us, from the time we are born, we know who we are, we know our story, we know the story of our ancestry on this land. And I think that is all I have when it comes to racism. It's super exhausting. But in the same breath, I won't discredit like all white people because they're white. Okay, let me get back to what I'm pro-Black, not anti-white. Okay, now let's get back to this whole storytelling thing, because this week, these past 2 weeks, have been like, for me, I think the two things was Dr. Nandipha's press release. That was insane. And this recent, premiere of a show called This Body Works For Me, and their subsequent appearance on Musa Kaula's podcast, Press releases are a very interesting way of like building a narrative around a situation. They are a very interesting way of, I guess, like, for companies, especially corporates, to kind of like, communicate information to the general public, through the press. Do you understand? So here they are molding, they are, I guess, I don't know, in conspiracy theory circles, a press release can be considered very much aligned to propaganda, at least, in my view, right? So I was really like interested in dissecting, this press release and really interrogating why it was released. But now, as we can kind of see, she was obviously preparing for her bail hearing. I'm really not sure why she would think like public perception would influence her bail hearing. It's kind of the most ridiculous thing, right? And as well as now what she did of like selling her story and putting forward that black woman, a black owned production company from South Africa, has exclusive rights to my story. I'm like, girl, you need to pay for them lawyers, do what you must to get the bag. But Batong, as communications practitioners, can we also, do a check-in with our morals? Are we not concerned about where our money is coming from? And I'm so sorry to like virtue signal, but for me personally, like there is just like a company where I'm not gonna work for you. I'm not gonna do this. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't align with those morals and that level of just like I can understand being an attorney, right? Like that is your job. You are being told probably by your boss that we are representing Nandipha Magudumana. But now, in selling your story to this production company, like how much of that narrative are you going to be influencing? Obviously they're going to try to paint you in this victimy light or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So I think, I don't know, for me that's a very icky territory that I would altogether stay away from, in order just to also not be part of double business karmic cycle. You know what I mean? Again, sorry with being so esoteric. And so I just really want us, I think, in dealing with clients and in dealing with in dealing as writers, like just me as a writer, and how I perceive, something like a press release. I think press releases very much fall into the area of storytelling, because again, it's like how, this, this narrative is received and what tidbits and size bites information can be distributed really to the general public. And like I think what Nandipha was trying to do there is elicit pity, from the general public, because who are you writing that press release to? Like, give me a break. Okay. Now the next thing, that I kind of, got into, I think during COVID. Before COVID, I was not really a reality show girly. I don't like reality shows, and not to look down on anybody that does, but there are some that I've actually watched, like the Real Housewives of Durban, very intriguing, of Cape Town, quite intriguing. Shout out Tato Monche. Sometimes my time. So this show, right, called This Body Works for Me, I was particularly interested in because, sex work, I guess, and I don't believe that, sex work is inherently bad, but I do feel that it is dangerous to glorify sex work. Um, and so I saw season 1, and so many things just like, came up in my head. I was like, wow, like this is actually a lot. And this is really telling of how late stage capitalism is really beginning to make us lose complete touch with ourselves, and to really like yeah, again, similarly to like, PR companies and whatever, like where your money is coming from is super important, this day and age in particular, right? And I think, what I kind of found alarming about the show was the fact that it kind of alludes to, these girls doing sex work online, right? But as you kind of get into the show and you hear their narratives, they are doing, I'm just going to put it out there blatantly, they are doing prostitution, and prostitution, as far as I know right now at this moment where I'm recording, is illegal in South Africa, number one, right? Number two, these women are quite young, right? And the way their narratives kind of, like are built, it's almost like I mean, I'm not like I say, like I don't want to invalidate sex work, or if you want to do sex work, but I think it's so important because there are so many young women who can relate to this image that is portrayed there, and when I say young women, because if you're looking at like the ages of the girls of the women on the show, it's like early 20s, late 20s, so naturally somebody who's like 14, 15, 16, even 12, given this day and age, and all the access that kids have, even a 12-year-old could be looking up to these people, right? So you could recognize her from Instagram, from having popping outfits, and then the next thing, she's on this Showmax show, and you watch the show, and you're like, oh, this is what she does to get all those nice clothes and all those nice nails and everything, and the show didn't really, touch on, the reality side, you know what I'm saying? So I really want, man, like there's so much, that I want to say about, this show in itself, but I don't want to dwell too much on it, but just to, kind of think about how, I get, again, coming back to storytelling, coming back to writing, and thinking about the imprint, that you are leaving, like, and understanding that this piece of information about you is going to be available for a very, very long time. And of course the world is changing. Yes, we are becoming more open to, things, like sex work, but there's also, I believe, a very dark side to this, and something that is, like, oh man, the stories, that we read every day. I remember like 2 years ago, I was so affected, by, like, I think it was like 7 or 8, bodies of like prostitutes found in somewhere like in Joburg, and, they were like, so this guy was like picking them up and killing them and putting them in his like mechanic shop and shit. And I think there is that side of it, like, and then also I think, being clear and, setting those boundaries in the narrative that you are forming, right? Because yes, you have OnlyFans, which I guess if you're not interacting with anybody and people are just buying your content, that you would, maybe say is a sexual performance, right? But the moment there begins to be a monetary exchange and you are meeting in person and you are having actual sex, then, like, that is prostitution. So, I think that, and also, like, again, going back to the ethics of storytelling, and I think some of what they recently said in Musa Kawila's interview, which I'm getting to in terms of like podcasts, now because I'm just looking at this reality show aspect of, there've been rumors that these girls don't get paid enough, by the production company, while they were filming, they were broke. And again, it's like, how do you commission people to make a show that is going to pay you so much money, yet, you are not taking care of these people, And so I saw like one episode of season 2, and I just felt like, again, now there's something off, right? Because again, if it's a reality show, let it be reality. Let it, show, the good and the bad, and and we understand that, yes, like, these people are obviously, I guess, within a group dynamic playing a specific role, but ultimately what those people are doing is reflecting back certain cultural tropes to us, or things that we ought to kind of think about, really, because I mean, dude, like, I can't, absolutely can't. Now on to the next, and then I'm gonna shut my mouth. That podcast they went in, I think, was a hot mess, and I think that we need to realize and understand that podcasts are also part of how we tell stories, and then therefore it becomes very important to have an ethical setting in your podcast. Okay, so first of all, right, like, from like, I think I've watched an hour of it at double speed. I haven't even watched the whole thing, and it's deeply annoying. It's deeply, like, there's just way too much swearing. So again, right, in obviously setting the groundwork for how you are going to tell these women's stories, these women who are already going through so much in the public eye, and also with what Musa is going through in the public eye, given all his shit, like, the least you can do is create an empathetic and empathetic yet professional space in which these women can express themselves and really, really talk about who they are. I think this interview was really like a missed opportunity, and I feel like my next in my next business FAQ, I'm going to be talking about why when you become a certain level of public figure, you probably need a PR team or somebody who is helping you to respond to interviews, who's helping you to craft a generally good public image, who's telling you, go on here, don't go on here. And I'll just put it out there, it was evident that Musa was intoxicated. I was very confused. There's like an empty bottle of Jägermeister on the table. There's Ingudu, Hunters, these girls, they've all got like wine there. Look, I'm not against alcohol, but I feel like if you are going to be hosting a podcast, showing up sober is really the least you can do. Because I think, as we know, when you get intoxicated, your train of thought, the way you speak, it slows down quite considerably. And as well, it's like, the back and forth was really, really becoming so cringe. If I were to just, put it that super lightly, you know. And then, right, an interesting part is when we get about an hour and 5 minutes into the episode. And Musa Kawula begins to speak about the stabbing issue. And again, first of all, speaking on an ongoing court case. Second of all, being disrespectful to the family of the victims, because now you have somebody else saying it's a good thing that, he passed. But remember, there is no verdict to this case. So I honestly, I felt like at that point, this drinking situation, because I feel like that's what it was. I don't think it was a podcast. It was just a drinking situation. And I feel like maybe they should have done that drinking situation, and enjoyed themselves without filming it, and perhaps, come back around, the next day, ni sober mani, and then, nisiphathele presentation, eqoqoshekileyo. Like, guys, I know I hyper fixate on my work, and I've been told that, it's a method of procrastination, the hyperfixation that I have. And, the fact that, that's why, like, my podcast is so sporadic. I fixate and I become so anxious about, like, oh my God, like what am I putting out there? Yes, just for my 10 viewers, So I feel like the more your platform grows, the bigger your responsibility, becomes, because it's like you can put on a character that drinks on a podcast without actually getting drunk. There's one blogger, that, I would say I kind of fully respect in this regard. Where was it? I used to watch her, and then she kind of just always, was coming after Cardi B, and I was like, this is wrong. Like, I'm not even a Cardi B fan, but this is some fucking weird shit. Unwind with Tasha. Like, her whole thing was drinking wine, but you are not going to see her slurring and taking off her shoes and like, and getting way too cozy. Every second word is a swear word, like. And, like, you can justify this in any way that you can. But I feel like it's important because also, like, when I'm relaying a story to you, and one of the reasons why I hyperfixate is because I do not want to disrespect somebody who has taken hours of their day or minutes of their day to listen to me and to listen to what I have to say. This is just a personal opinion that I have. And I think for me, that 1 hour and 5 minutes is where my listening stops. I've never watched any, of this kind of content, but it definitely has me thinking, is this our level of discourse as South Africans? Is this the level of what we want to call commentary? Does it just stop at, the gossiping? And also, I think beyond that hour, I've seen other clips, in other places where, the girls are really now, because now they are on the other side of the alcohol. Now, because they came in all like, oh, I'm a sex worker, blah, 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 blah. But towards the end of the interview is really when the dark side of what they do, kind of starts to seep through the cracks, right? Which is why, this takes me back to, you need a professional, a team behind you that understands. So, because I'm not trying to invalidate what they do or make what they do immoral. No, I'm not here for that. But it's also like, how do we then, balance, these factors, and how do we advise, how, like, the way in which, the advice you'd get, I'd say, from your reputation. I mean, somebody, a group of girls like this, women, I'm sorry for calling them girls, or even as a group or as an individual, PR person, reputation manager, right? Also, somebody who has a very good understanding of how South African media works, to tell you, come on this podcast, don't come on this podcast. Being on a podcast with this individual is messy, because if he comes out of that case being found guilty, you are part and parcel of and also I think, the way in which Musa Kawula has carried, himself, and the fact that, he keeps on saying things like, we're friends, but everyone has seen how he treats his friends, So it's also like, I mean, if I was their advisor, PR person, I'm not a PR person, by the way, I'm just a writer. But if I was in the shoes, of, somebody who says yes, no, or prepares them for interviews, I would be like, we are not going on that show, and I think, I really hope that, they are able to somehow benefit from this. Because remember, unless maybe you are like covering true crime, or you are covering a Tabo Besta or whatever, I feel like your subjects, right, that you are talking to in your interviews, in your documentaries, and whatever, there has to be some sort of benefit for them, Their story gets documented. They become a part of history, in one sense or another. So you begin to see your task as more than just sitting around and talking shit. But it's like you are archiving, information, you're documenting something. Yes. And so hopefully I don't fixate too much on this podcast, and I actually do, upload it, because, sometimes I just listen to what I am saying and I'm like, is anybody really going to care? And I don't think I'm saying it right, blah, 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 blah. But I think it was just on my mind, and I just had to, like, get it out the way, and then move on to the next thing. So if you got this far, you might as well subscribe. You might as well do a like thing. You just might as well share this with somebody who might find it interesting and useful. Take care. Love yourself.